thing is scrolling.
Right.
I'm a scroller, so I'll go through Facebook and Instagram and scroll. Just look at everybody's, right?
Right.
That's the worst thing I can do. And when I start to feel myself get jealous or upset or start to be like, why is this person got 500 likes and I got 0? And then I'm like, stop it. Just get off it. Put it down. It doesn't matter. Because that doesn't mean anything about who I am.
Right.
But I find you have to keep talking to yourself like that. And once it becomes a habit, it's easier to do. But man, it was really hard at first when I would just see this and I'd bitch to other people. I'm like, why don't I get any likes?
Yeah.
And they're like, don't worry, it's not you. It's not because they don't like you as a person. I'm like, okay. Because you sometimes need friends that reassure you that social media is not real life.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Deep MCs, the podcast that seeks to push meaningful conversation to a whole new level. Whether it's for your entertainment or your personal growth, we appreciate you being here today. And now, on to the show. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Deep MC Show. Today we are actually doing something a little different. Aaron is taking a day off, so I decided to invite in someone very special, someone you guys probably know, and hopefully you guys are following and listening to. We have, drum roll, suspense, go for it.
Stephanie from the Step Up Podcast.
Stephanie is here from the Step Up Podcast. Some people have wanted this, and now you have it. And we're going to have a good show for you today. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. But before we get into that, Stephanie, don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Oh, you can find me on basically anywhere you listen to podcasts. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podcast Addict, Apple, Google. I'm on Instagram mostly, basically, at stepup_podcast. And I have a website, stepuppodcast.com.
Love it. Well, I mean, we've kind of had a chance to talk a little bit before, but I mean, I want to appreciate you, or thank you, and say I appreciate you, there you go, for making the time to kind of come in and fill the gap, have a little conversation with me, and hopefully we can put together a good show. I mean, I know we will, and even if we don't, who cares? It's what we want to do, so that's all that really matters, right?
Thank you so much for having me on. It's fun, and I'm sorry, Aaron, I'm taking your place, but yeah, we give him the day off.
Right,
okay.
Right. This is what we want, right? And this is it's actually new, right? I've been on a lot of other shows, but you are actually the official first guest of Deep MCs. So There you go.
Funsies.
So normally it's this time I would ask Aaron, what are we getting into today? But I'll ask you, what are we getting into today? What do you feel like? How deep are you willing to go?
You know what? I can't remember what we were going to talk about, but I think...
See, you're on the spot, right?
I know. Well, okay, you and I were talking about a variety of things.
Yeah,
and I
we
think
were.
We had a good pre-chat, and so I think we could talk about a lot of things, and it could delve into different things.
I like it. So, I mean, one of the things that I really wanted to kind of discuss with you is things people shouldn't say but do, or things people think but don't say, or just random conversations and topics that people usually consider a little taboo. I mean, I know that there's a lot of things for me that people I don't know, I make people uncomfortable with. Have you ever, I mean, even talking with your friends, is there anything that just pops into your mind as like, oh, this conversation is making me uncomfortable?
Well, yes, I had something recently where I was trying to explain to somebody. I heard somebody say that saying China virus was okay. Like they didn't see anything wrong with that. And I was like telling my other friend, this person said China virus and they said nothing wrong with it. And this friend was like, well, yeah, it came from China, so why can't we call it China virus? And I was trying to explain that it's not just the country it came from. It has all this other connotations that come along with it, and the racist things that have happened to people of Asian descent because of it's the connotation. It's what it means. It's like, if it hurts somebody, don't say that, and don't say it like in a certain way, like, oh, the China virus.
Right.
And I was so frustrated because this person was not really thinking it was a big deal. So I think that was the latest discussion I had with somebody where I was kind of surprised that this person was saying it wasn't bad to say that.
Right. So I guess, I mean, just in general, when it comes to labeling or labeling people or labeling things, or I guess just words that we use for description, for me, that is kind of it's a weird gray area for me, right? I think that generally when it comes to things like that, if it's done in a way that's not malicious, I don't really mind it as much, right? Because it could be a lot of things. It could be just words. It could be a teaching opportunity. You know, maybe someone just doesn't know or understand. I mean, I try not to get upset at it for the most part. And I guess, I mean, you know, sometimes it just depends also too who it comes from. You know, a lot of times, like I see people, they hear something from a friend and it's no big deal, but then a stranger says the same exact thing and they're ready to fight, you know? So it's like, I don't know how I feel. I think that if people are using it and they're ignorant to it, I mean, definitely teaching opportunity. If they still continue, then obviously I think there's a problem there, but I kind of like people being able to be descriptive in their own way. I don't know.
The only thing I would say is, because I am not from China and I have not, like, I'm white, so I can't speak to how, I want to be sensitive to how that makes people feel.
Right.
So if I were to say that and then I hear somebody from China or of any Asian descent who's had a lot of racisms towards them, and I find out from them, and then I'm like, okay, well, don't say that. I'm more sensitive to that because I don't have that experience, but I want to listen to people who have had that experience. Whereas, because that's how I've learned things over the years. I mean, I don't always know the right things to say, and then I find out from people, and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that was offensive. So yeah, I think there's a lot of ignorance where we come in, we say these kind of things. But when it's out there and we know about it and then we continue to say things like that, and this is coming from white people, so it's not like, I'm like, okay, but maybe go ask somebody who is Chinese and ask them if that's hurtful.
Right.
Instead of just assuming, no, there's nothing wrong with saying that, without going out and talking to different people and asking them how they feel about it. That's how I feel about it, because maybe if you're from China and you say it's China virus, it's kind of different than me being white saying China virus, right?
But I mean, should it be though? Should it be different? And I guess that's kind of a struggle too, right? And it's not, I mean, it doesn't have to do with race. Just like I was watching this show on Netflix, not paid product placement, I wish it was, but and it's about like just words, right? And I think it was like swear words or something like that, and like their origin story, right? And one of the words, and you know, if it offends you, please let me know, but one of the words in the first episodes that I watched was actually bitch, right? And the meaning behind it, what it means and why it's derogatory. But then as they were talking to a lot of women, they're like, well, no, I like using that word and I use it for my friends. Like, I call my friends bitches, but don't dare call me a bitch, right? So in those situations, I guess it's the same thing for me being black with, like, you know, the N word, as they say, right? People don't like to say it, but, you know, is it okay for me to use it but not for you, right? And all the reasons behind that. And that's what I say, like, I guess for me it kind of goes into the person, the environment, and where it comes from, you know? I mean, I grew up in California. I've got to move around quite a bit, but, you know, I grew up, you know, when you grow up around people, whether they're Hispanic or black or whatever, like when you're in a community, language is universal, right? So, I mean, I've had Hispanic friends and everything else that use, you know, the N-word, and it doesn't bother me. I'm not mad at them for saying, like, that was how we communicated at that point in time, right? But then they'll get so offended if someone else does it, and I feel like that's kind of not fair to a certain extent. I guess it depends on the like I said, the origin and the meanings behind the words.
Yeah, like how you're saying, if you're saying the N-word, like, I'm your friend and I'm saying it this way, and that doesn't bother you, but if you're saying it because I don't like you because
of
I
that,
don't like,
right?
Yeah, because I'm racist, then it has a different meaning to it. That's the kind of thing that you're referring to, right?
Yeah, right. And you said something earlier too when you're talking, and it kind of a thought popped in my head. When you were just talking about, you know, like the China virus stuff, and this is coming from white people and everything else like that. I mean, obviously, I didn't know before, but we had a conversation about it. Like, I never knew that you were in Canada, right? So until you went with a boat. I can't do it, right? But
out and about,
even something like that, right, could be considered like derogatory, right? Like if it's used in, like, I don't mean it in, and I would never, like, I don't mean it as like to make fun or whatever, but like that was like an identifier for me, right? But like if I'm trying to say it, or it seems like even now, like I'm trying to mimic that, it could be almost offensive in a way, because like you have no control over the way you sound or the way you talk. Like that's just how you grew up, right? So is there anything though, because, you know, I'm here in Texas and we're so far from Canada, is there anything like by being in Canada that is like derogatory or offensive, like to people that are Canadians, I guess?
Well, there was something that just came out, I think yesterday, and I don't pay attention to the Olympics, I'm sorry, but I think it was soccer, or somebody Canadian won, and I guess NBC cut out the medal ceremony for Canada or something. I just kind of skimmed past it. I didn't really read it.
Right.
And Canadians were getting all offended. But they're like, well, if we were to watch our network, CBC, they're like, you could just watch it on CBC, and they had the Canadians. Like, the Americans don't really care. And most countries are not going to care about all the other countries. They're going to cut it out at a certain point. But Canadians get really offended when that stuff happens. And I kind of see... I always felt like the Americans were like the bigger, the older sibling, and we're the little sibling that's like, pay attention to me, right? We're always doing that when something is filmed in Canada. We're like, oh, it was filmed in Canada. You can see the CN Tower or whatever. And we get so excited, right? Or there's a mention of Canada.
Right.
In Grown Ups, the movie Grown Ups, they had this guy from Saskatoon. He's a guy, I'm from Saskatoon. And then all the ladies were laughing because his voice was so funny. But when they mentioned Saskatchewan, that's one of our provinces, it's
right.
exciting because they're like, oh, nobody mentions Saskatchewan because it's hard to say and for some people. And, you know, it's one of the provinces that usually people know Toronto and Vancouver, but they don't really know the rest of Canada. They don't even know we have provinces instead of states. Which is really funny. But I joke with Americans because I'm like, well, we got like 10 provinces and 3 territories. Or 2 territories and none of it. I don't know. They've changed it since I was a kid. So I don't. But ours are pretty easy to memorize. You guys have like 50 states.
Yeah.
That's a lot to memorize.
It is. But I'm not going to lie. When you say all these provinces, I couldn't tell you one. Like, I don't know. And
you can't name one?
I don't even know what a province is. You know, like
you would have heard of Quebec.
Okay, good. Yes, I know Quebec. But and that's the thing, right? I guess, and that's my ignorance, right? Is that being here, you know, I don't really think about other countries. I mean, I do if I hear something that's going on, but like I don't know enough geography or detailed information. Like, you know, I know, you know, Toronto from, you know, the Raptors and this, that, and the other. And, you know, I've heard of Quebec and I've heard of like, but I don't know what it is. To me, they're all just cities, right? Like, I don't, and maybe that's bad. Everybody's gonna be like, oh my God, really, dude? but, you know, I don't know. But
in all fairness, there's a lot of information to know. I remember, so I I moved to Toronto. I lived there for 10 years, and I got to know so much more about the world because I met people from all over.
Right.
And I remember saying something, I can't remember what it was now. I said Afghanistan was in the Middle East or something. I don't remember. And then somebody goes, no, that's not the Middle East. It's this. Or I don't know what it was, to be honest. I still don't know.
Right.
And then I was like, what? I thought everything over there was the Middle East. Like, I don't even know.
Don't feel bad.
But I was always bad at geography. But also, there's just so much. And then when you want to find out about a country and what happens in the Middle East, there's so much history to go through and what happened here and here and here. And you're like, oh, that's too hard for my brain. That's a lot of information to know.
Yeah. Do you find it, do you find it overwhelming or exhausting now to have to be so, I guess, inclusionary? Would that be the right word? Or whatever. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people these days, and it kind of ties into what I'm talking about, things you shouldn't say, whatever. So many people are just getting so offended by everything. It doesn't matter what it is, that like, if you're not an expert on everything, you're offending somebody, at some point, and it's not even on purpose, one person can only know so much.
Your mic is clipping a bit.
Oh, a little bit. Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Why is that happening?
I don't know. Good question.
It's still clipping.
Really? We'll just keep running it. It's good on my side, so.
Oh, okay. That's good.
We'll see what happens. But
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Yeah, I find it hard to kind of, that's why I like to say I don't really know. I don't know things. Because if I used to be growing up in a very fundamentalist, conservative Christian environment,
right.
Everything was, this is the truth. And pretty much thought you always knew the truth. And so I would just say things, and then I realized how stupid it was because people would tell me. And so I got to know over the years, not everything I know is actually what it is.
Right.
And, then you kind of learn, like I took philosophy at university, and you start to learn the more that how much you don't know.
Right.
And that's okay. And I was like, okay, phew. Because I always felt kind of stupid anyways, right? But I was embarrassed. Like, I don't know. But it's okay to say you don't know.
Right.
But I'm willing to, I think that's the important thing, is we're open to learning. So if I find out something and I'm thinking, okay, I thought that this was true, or I thought, I don't know. And then people tell me, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, now I know. So I can be better.
Right. What would you say would be your biggest aha truth reversal? I don't know if I even formulated that right, but what would you say was the things that you thought was one way and it wasn't that? What was the biggest breakthrough moment for you?
Oh my goodness.
No pressure. No pressure.
Oh, I don't know.
This is only going to be on the internet forever.
The biggest thing that I thought was true and wasn't true?
Yeah, whatever the first one that pops to mind. I will say for me, while you're thinking on that, one of the things, and I feel so stupid, right? Because I live in Houston, Texas, and I never knew that AstroTurf was made for the Houston Astros, and that's where we got AstroTurf from. Not that it's anything major, but when I finally figured it out, I was like, wow, really? I'm stupid. I've been thinking that AstroTurf was just artificial grass. This is what it was everywhere, but it was made to go in the Astrodome because it's fully covered and there's no sunlight in there, and they needed the grass surface, whatever would be there, would die, so they invented the artificial grass, the AstroTurf, and everybody just kind of calls it that. Maybe they don't in Canada, I don't know, but here in the States they do.
Yeah.
So,
that's a good question.
We always
There's a
have
lot of things I didn't know.
hard-hitting questions here at Deep MCs.
Well, I think it wasn't like too recently. I don't know when, but when I found out Washington D.C., like District of Columbia, I don't know. That's a confusing state to me.
It is.
It's like a state, but it's a city. But what?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that one throws everybody. I don't even think half the people, if you're not a diehard Republican, Democrat, anybody into politics, like you probably don't even understand that. You know,
I don't understand your. Well, okay, your politics is sometimes easy to understand, I guess, or easy enough where I can follow it, and then other times I'm like, wait, what's happening?
Yeah.
I get so confused.
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, I'm not a super political person, right? I mean, it takes a lot, you know, really get in there. There's a lot of people that spend a lot of time just trying to decipher and find out or how to get to the bottom of what it is that we're doing. And I think it's just because we have such an archaic system that has been like one way for so long, but it's like one of those things where it's been broken, but you just keep trying to put a Band-Aid on it and just Band-Aid and Band-Aid and Band-Aid and Band-Aid. And the next thing you know, you have more Band-Aid than anything else and you don't really know what's going on. But yeah, I would say that we need to revamp because, you know, we've been operating under this one way for so long. I mean, I guess Canada would be in the same boat, right? I mean, your political system has been the same for a little while, you know. I don't know why no one ever really questions those things, right? Like there's some things that we always try to improve even when we don't need, you know, like cell phone, you know, we're iPhone, whatever, 100 right now, Galaxy S, whatever. Like you don't really need to improve it, but we continue to do it like little by little, even if it's small tweaks, right? So, but why don't we do that with like some of the most important parts or functioning parts of our life? You know, our government plays a big role in everything, but we don't ever really look to re-upping, reevaluating, refreshing, redoing. I don't know. We just kind of just tweak it in ways to benefit the minority, not the majority. I don't know. It's different up there, right? Like you guys have a whole different set of rules and stuff, but I would love to live in Canada and get free, is it really free healthcare, free education, free whatever. You see?
Well, that's an interesting thing, the healthcare system, because that's another thing that we do, right? Where we talk about how we have free healthcare and you guys don't, and blah 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 blah. And I'm grateful for the fact that I can go to the doctor and not have to pay. However, there's issues. If you need to see a specialist, it can take you 6 months to a year, to maybe more than that, just to get in to see somebody.
Wow.
There's a lot of wait times. I mean, even seeing your normal doctor can take a while. I remember, you know, if you have the flu and you call in sick and they're like, oh, well, call your doctor, make an appointment, even though for the flu they can't really do anything. It can take you like a few days to get in. So you're just like, what's the point of that?
Wow.
Because by the time you go to your doctor, you're fine, right? Like it's
right. Yeah. I guess I never really thought about that. You know, the downfalls of it. I guess, you know, people always project like the benefits, the good things. You don't ever really hear the backside. I mean, that's kind of interesting. You know, it's definitely not that here. I mean, they'll take you in here, but you're gonna pay for it. you're
like every time you go see your
it.
GP, right? You have to pay for the doctor.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you will find. I mean, if you have a good job with good benefits, there's some places where you don't, but for the most part, you're always paying some type of deductible or some type of fee. Yeah, it gets pretty pricey. And even when it comes to like little things. So for like myself, I have alopecia totalis, right? So I tried to get it treated. You have to go to a dermatologist and all of this stuff. And you pay for, I was getting like these injections like in my face and in my head and all this other things to try to get the hair to grow, right? But it's expensive. Oh my goodness, it's expensive. I wish that would have been free. You know, every time you're going there, you're going to spend, you know, $500, $600, $700 out of your pocket, you know, just to do this thing and it's, you know, you have to stay on top of it and keep doing it. You know, it's doing like every 2 weeks at some point, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I wish we had some free medical. I would have waited for that to take care of those bills. You know, obviously it didn't work.
Some people think everything's free here. We still have to pay to see our dentist and the chiropractor and physio massage. All those things. It's just your general practitioner and the hospital and the specialist, depending on the specialist, though. But I had a friend from the States that just assumed everything was free, and I was like, no, that's not the case.
I mean, God, see, we should have had a whole just episode about the differences between the U.S. and Canada. I mean, these are things. We can start over. These are things that are interesting and people want to know, right? We always just assume. I mean, it was the same thing when I was having conversations with Benji at Skip the Noise podcast. You know, shout out to Benji over there too. Shameless plug right there, right? But having conversations with him, and we were just talking about like Australia and stuff like that. And there's like, even you think about places and you kind of just have, I guess everybody just has their own image in their head from what they've just seen on TV or whatever, but no one really knows the details of what's really there. And it's actually kind of interesting just to something as simple as like just hearing the difference between healthcare, right? Or hearing the difference between, you know, the regular daily life. Like it's kind of intriguing just to see how people live when we're really not that far apart. I mean, come on, US and Canada is not that, it's an imaginary line that separates us, but yet it's so different. You know,
it's different, but it's the same in a lot of ways. Like I have family in Europe, and I remember my grandfather, my Opa, he said to somebody, oh, they're from Canada, and they just like, oh, America. We're like, no, we're different. We are different. But, you know, I mean, but yeah, okay, we're North America. Like it's the same compared to, you know, Austria, right, where my grandparents are from. So, but yeah, in so many ways we are very similar. And the things that you guys have that we have, I mean, we share a lot of the same restaurants and chains. But then there's those other things that we're like, wow, we're so different in other areas, right?
Yeah.
Which is so interesting.
It really is, you know, and just because of borders, I don't know, that's just weird to me, you know, something that is just someone made up has caused such like a drastic difference in a lot of things, you know, because we are so, I mean, we could walk, I mean, well, it's a far walk, but you could walk, you know, just from one side to the other, but it's just a completely different world. I don't know, that's always kind of fascinated me, and why things are that way. I don't know, but yeah.
Well, I remember finding out that you guys in school, you learn, like it's English and Spanish, right? For us, it's English and French. We had to take French because that's the second language here.
Right.
And I used to think, like, I hated French just because I did not get the basics. And then once you don't get the basics and you keep having to take it and you're like, I'm so lost. And the fact that we're forced to learn something, that actually bothered me too. But now I look back and I'm like, now I wish I had understood it and had it, because that would be super helpful in getting work. You know, if you're bilingual, that gets you a peg up there, right?
Right. So what I'm hearing you say is you did terrible in your French class.
I got up to grade 11, and you only had to take it up to grade 10. But I thought, I might as well do another year. But I barely passed it, so I was like, forget this. I am not good at this. I can barely put a sentence together. So I don't know how I made it that far.
Don't feel bad. I did. I flunked out of Spanish in high school. Had to take it in summer school, and thank God my summer school teacher was one of my sports coaches, so I didn't really have to try. So that worked out wonderful. That worked out great. Helped me get through high school, you know? That's a good thing. Or I probably shouldn't admit that, but whatever. Yeah. No.
Well, the funny thing was, so I took German in grade 12, and we had grade 13, or what we called in my province, OAC, which I don't know what it stands for, but grade 13 anyways.
Okay.
And I loved taking German. It was very enjoyable for me. I found it way easier, at least for me, than French. And maybe because my mom is from Austria and our family speaks German. So for me, it was a personal thing and something I wanted to take rather than French that I was forced to learn, and didn't really have anyone I knew that spoke French, or it wasn't like a personal thing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, right? Is finding what you can connect to. It makes a huge difference. I think that was one of my biggest struggles in school in general. I just didn't connect, so I didn't do well. And I think sometimes that gets overlooked quite a bit, especially when we're trying to educate. I mean, let's face it, the education system here in some of these parts of the States is not very good, and we don't try to make a better learning environment for people like me who suffer with finding that connection, right, to the content, to the material. So yeah, I mean, that it's always nice when you can kind of have that personal touch. It just makes it so much more enjoyable all the way around, you know. I do want to ask you this though. Why, speaking of personal things, right? You're doing your podcast, you're doing everything. What brought you into podcasting? Like, what was the thing that set you and said, you know what, it's go time. I want to do this.
Oh, that's such a funny question because it was kind of by accident. So I worked at a bank for 14 years, and I was having some health issues, and I wanted to move back to because I was living in Toronto. I lived there for 10 years, and I was tired. Toronto is very exhausting. Too many people, I can't handle it. So I wanted to move back to my hometown, and I couldn't really move within the company. So I was like, forget this. And I worked on the phone, so I was always told like I had a nice voice. I used to sing when I was younger, so I kind of like.
Are we going to get a sample before the podcast is over? We're going to get a song. No?
I was bad. I don't like singing in public. It made me very nervous. So it was just like, ugh. It was not good. But yeah, so I was like, because voiceover is a big thing now where there's companies online where you can just get your own setup and start, and you think it's easy. You're just talking to a mic, right? So that's kind of what I assumed I would do. And I started learning about the tech and the audio, and there's a lot of stuff, and especially for voiceover. Like podcasting, you can have a nice setup, but for voiceover, they want the sound has to be superb.
Perfect.
So I kept having to figure out the little booth, the setup, and I didn't know what I was doing. It was very overwhelming for me. And I thought, well, the thing that will make me learn this stuff, because I'm a procrastinator, I'll put it off. I was like, if I have a podcast and I have to have an episode out by a certain time, I have to learn it, right? That will force me to learn it.
Right.
And I started meeting a lot of people online and having chats, and I was like, hey, this would be fun to just talk about different things. And it was actually Simon Sinek he has a podcast called A Bit of Optimism, and he was just talking to different people, and I was like, hey, that sounds really cool. So I started just doing that, and honestly, it's super fun. I find it really enjoyable to have these conversations with people, and you get to meet people all around the world.
Exactly. That's awesome.
It's amazing. And it has gotten me more and more comfortable with talking, because I sometimes get very anxious and awkward and nervous. And I've had to fight through that. Like some of my podcasts, I'm like, oh, what do I say next? And my brain stops. It just freezes. And I still do that. Like when you ask me, I'm like, nothing is in my brain right now. And then you can't search for what you're thinking of.
Right. We've all been there. The
anxiety makes it worse, right? Because then you're just like, everything freezes. So, but this is it's definitely helped me personally, just talking.
No, I mean, it really does make a difference. And I would even say for myself, like having this podcast has personally helped me in a lot of ways with just my general communication, right? Being able to actually kind of talk about some of my problems or some of my issues, or work through, personal things for myself. Because I mean, I'm normally a very, very private, very quiet to myself type person, and being able to to get on here and just kind of zone out and have a conversation with people or my partner has made a huge difference overall in my daily life, honestly, Now if I can just figure out how to navigate past all of the podcast BS, there'd be a lot better and more opportunity. I think I'd like it a lot more, but that's my current struggle. What would you say your current struggle with podcasting is, right? Like, what would you think your number one podcasting struggle is?
Getting the word out there, the social media aspect, having to post at a certain time and a certain day, and it's hard because when I was miserable and kind of bitching about my job and posting stupid crap, I would get, a lot of my friends would be like, oh, hey, yeah, I like that. And now I get like nothing. Like, it's literally, I'm like, what? Do people not, I guess, I don't know. It's hard, right? Because I'm putting something out there, and then you think, oh, are people not interested? Is this, or maybe it's just people don't want to talk about the hard things. That could be it too, right? It's easy to click on somebody's selfie than it is to click on a difficult topic that that you've got on your podcast.
Yeah. But I think people run from those things pretty fast, especially if it hits really close to home. They tend to kind of stay away from it. I would agree with you, though. I mean, getting the word out is definitely a difficult thing, and I mean, it shows. Even if you look at Instagram and you just kind of scroll through and see what's there, and there's people that have the millions of followers that literally are doing nothing, and then you have someone that's making like amazing content to really help people, and it's like they have 300 followers, and is it fair, man? No, not at all. But yeah, that's been my struggle. But also too, I've kind of found that at least right now, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for this, and this is only the Deep MC's point of view, right? But God, people are so flaky in the podcast community. People are so flaky, and it's kind of frustrating. I mean, I've had people, they reach out to me and saying, hey, I want to work with you, this, that, or that, and the other people that are doing pretty well, these 1,000+ followers, 2,000 followers, 3,000 followers, whatever it is. Oh yeah, I love this, I love that, let's set this up, we're gonna do this on this day, what's the end of your week look like, blah, 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 and then just completely blow you off. Like, that just drives me nuts. Like, at the end of the day, do what you say you're gonna do. Right. Just do what you say you're gonna do, and let's do something together, right? And if you're not interested, then at least say no. Don't diss.
I had that happen recently. There was somebody I knew who said, oh, you might want this person on your podcast. And I emailed them, and they wrote back like 5 days later. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm sure they're busy. Emails, things can get missed. I get it. And then I was like, yeah, sure. But what about this? And so, because she said, give me some dates. And so I gave her some dates that I would be free. And that was, 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And I'm thinking, okay, forget it. Like, this is, obviously I'm going to be freaking out if I can't get in contact with you and you want to do a podcast and we're not connecting. If I don't hear from you and I'm kind of relying on your interview, then I don't want to have to chase people.
No, for sure.
I think that's the hard piece. That's hard for sure.
It is, and I don't know. Some of these people act like they're a bigger celebrity than they really are. I guess is kind of what it seems like. I'm just like, dude, you're in the same boat as me. Like, why can we not work together? It's almost like it's like a race of who can be the next big podcast. Like, they want to just do whatever it takes, right? Like, it should be a TV show of some kind. I don't know. But I would find that's my biggest frustration right now is the growth and the growing aspect, right? The networking. People just aren't responsive. But at the end of the day, I mean, for me, like I said, we just set out for us as our goal just to try to make content for people and just kind of have conversations and kind of talk about, a lot of those we don't want to touch conversations. And I'm getting to the point where I'm just accepting that. Like, I'm going to do it, and hopefully people tune in and like it, and if they don't, it doesn't matter, because as long as at least one person listens and gets something from it, I mean, that's fine with me.
Yeah. Well, that's why they say, why are you doing this? Like, it comes down to your passion or your why, as
Right.
Simon Sinek talks about, right? And also with social media, it's kind of like, well, I have to post, right? I have to do this. Well, get excited about it, So, yeah, social media I still have a hard time with. But with the podcast, sometimes I'll get discouraged, especially when I see, like, on Facebook, there's some different groups, and they're like, I got 10,000 downloads and I only produced one episode. And I'm like, man, I've got like
It must be nice.
25 episodes and I just reached 1,000 downloads.
Yeah.
And so you start to compare, and it's really, really bad for you mentally. But then I'm just like, okay, first of all, it depends what their podcast is about. If it's true crime, you're golden. I mean, all the true crime stuff is really big. If you're into controversy or some of the sex, I mean, you're going to get that. But that's not my brand. I don't want to be, that's not what I want to be about. So that's for them, and that gets some listeners, fine. But you also have to kind of look at it in terms of that. But also, why am I doing this? I enjoy doing it. I think it's super fun. I get to meet all these people and learn so much. And also, yeah, it helps when you have even one person just say, hey, listening to this helped me get better perspective on something, or I learned something. I'm like, oh, that makes me feel so happy.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, because and I guess for me, I kind of struggle with it a little bit myself. So for someone like yourself who, I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm not here to diagnose you, but you mentioned anxiety a few times. So you're dealing with anxiety as a whole, as a person, as whatever. Me personally, like a lot of mental health stuff too, like I'm more on the depression side than anything. And I guess for you, my question is, how does the social media aspect really affect you, right? Because there's studies that have been done on social media that show that it generally has a negative effect and impact on people. But then when you have people like us who have mental health issues, anxiety issues, or whatever the situation is, trying to make content to address these things, and then because we're making that content, we have to become part of the machine that has a negative effect on our mental health. Like, how are you dealing with that? How are you dealing with that, and what do you do to try to combat that?
Well, I've also struggled with depression over the years. The anxiety is, I actually got off my medication last year. I was on it for, I don't know, 8 years or something.
That's huge.
And I've been working with different life coaches and learning different things. And so, one life coach. But anyways, I'm learning how to handle it, or, have the control over it. And so I don't have this crippling social anxiety like I used to. Also, I've been healing. There's so many, I look back at different things and I was like, oh, I had a lot of healing I had to do in order to get to this place, right?
Right.
But yeah, the social media, honestly, LinkedIn freaks me out because it's businessy, and I just got a new job. So I'm like, well, do I put that on there? Because I also post my podcast on there.
Okay.
And I don't want people angry at me for things that I've said. Because last year, I sometimes I swore on my podcast, and I swear less now that I'm less angry. But I don't know. But then other people are like, no, you're fine. You can still post on LinkedIn. And I think the worst thing is scrolling. Right. I'm a scroller, so I'll go through Facebook and Instagram and scroll. Just look at everybody's, right?
Right.
That's the worst thing I can do. And when I start to feel myself get jealous or upset, or start to be like, why is this person got 500 likes and I got 0? And then I'm like, stop it. Just get off it. Put it down. It doesn't matter. Because that doesn't mean anything about who I am.
Right.
But I find you have to keep talking to yourself like that. And it's once it becomes a habit, it's easier to do. But man, it was really hard at first when I would just see this, and I'd bitch to other people. I'm like, why don't I get any likes?
Yeah.
And they're like, don't worry, it's not you. It's not because they don't like you as a person. I'm like, okay, because you sometimes need friends that reassure you that social media is not real life.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, right? They think social media is the end all be all to their existence and their meaning and everything else. And I mean, first of all, congratulations on getting off your medication. That's huge. And
Thank
for
you.
anybody that takes it, they will understand how big that is, but also, I mean, just the fact that you're self-aware enough to realize when you're having that negative impact, or you're seeing that negative impact on your mental psyche as you're scrolling through stuff, you can be aware and say, I need to step away. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge thing in itself. A lot of people, they just get further lost, in that scroll, because it just never ends. You just keep going and going and going and going. And yeah, it's hard. And I've talked about it on, a couple other podcasts that I've done, just the effects that social media has on you is tremendous. And you do get stuck in this pattern of like, oh, they don't like me, or whatever the situation is, or how does this person have, why can this person post a picture of their sliced steak and have 400,000 likes, right? And I'm posting a picture, right, and I get like 2, but it's also kind of frustrating too, because I think until you get to that point of success where you are hitting those numbers, like it begins to be kind of like a grind. And I always just question, like, what is so hard about pushing a like? What is so hard about pushing a like? Why do you post something and it only gets 5, right? So my Instagram is growing. It's fairly new. It's not, I don't have a ton of followers, right? Just barely broke 200, and maybe of those 200, probably 80 of them are fake, but right?
Or they're promoted on this.
Yeah, or they're promoted here. You can promote it, and whatever. I'll take the numbers. I don't care. But regardless of the fact, like, I post something, if you're really following me, even if I have 20 real followers out of my 200, I should get 20 likes. I should get 20 at least. And I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like I deserve it or whatever, but like if you're really following me to follow me, you're gonna see that post. It's free for you to do. You're probably at some point gonna scroll past it. Is it gonna kill you to just do, and push that button? And those things, like, on their own make a world of difference to people. You can easily boost somebody's self-esteem as well as you can destroy it, right? But we don't do those positive affirmations, and I don't know why, right? Like, everybody likes to hear, you did a good job. Everybody likes to hear that was really great. We have the opportunity to change people, or make people feel better, or make people try harder, or make people reach their goals by doing something that's free, and the effect is just tremendous. But we don't do it. I mean, I do it, and it's frustrating, it's irritating, right? But I go through and I mass like everything. I just do, because people, they're trying, they're doing this, they're making an effort, and I'm gonna support that. I'm not, when I say mass like, I'm talking about the people that I follow. I'm not just gonna go around and mass like some hate crime or something, right? But I because that's what they're doing, and they're fighting, and they're doing that. But everybody doesn't have that same mentality, and I don't know.
Right.
It's unfortunate.
Well, and it's also, you also have to be careful what you like. And I have a hard time with this because I want to support people.
Right.
Because it's true, right? Like, if I see people who post things, sometimes I will not post things just because I'm like, oh, brother, another selfie. Okay, I'm not going to like this on purpose. And then I'm like, Steph, why are you so being bitchy about it?
Right.
But that's my own problem, right? Like, but anyways, But if I start liking everything and then I'm like, well, that is not on brand. Like if I were to see somebody I really admire, and they're if they like or comment on something that is controversial or political, it's kind of it can make or break them,
you.
right?
Yeah.
And I have to be careful with that because I've gotten sometimes angry over some political stuff and whatever. And
No, I would agree with that.
So I try not to like everything, but I do try to, like you said, like people's, support them.
Right.
But it's hard because sometimes if you're not, and that's the thing, if I'm not scrolling through, I'm not seeing those things, or the algorithm. I've had friends who are like, I never see your posts. And so because other people aren't liking it, it's not bumped up, so they're not seeing it, and they've got maybe 1,000 friends. And so I'm at the very bottom, so they're not even seeing it. And that's where this whole algorithm and all that stuff comes in. I'm like, oh, what? Why do you make it so complicated? It's hard.
Yeah, it is super hard. And I will agree with you, like not to like everything. And I will say, like, I generally try to follow people that I've seen something from them that I enjoy, or they've done something that I've enjoyed, and that's what I try to keep up on, and that's why my followers are a little less than my following is a little less than my followers, I guess, because I don't follow everybody, because I don't agree with everything. But even then, there's like a person that I follow right now who shall remain nameless, but like some of their stuff that they post is like, right. Is it you? No. But some of the stuff that they post is great, and I love it. But then they also do a lot of PETA stuff, or like animal rights stuff, and I feel bad because I'm a meat eater. So I'm just like, I can't. Yeah, okay, you're showing this dead pig, right? I'm not gonna like it though because I just ate like a pound of bacon. Like I can't do it. You know, I feel bad, right? But you know, I don't know. And I guess for me, that's that in itself is a struggle.
For sure. Actually, there was one thing I wanted to say. Putting yourself out there on a podcast, like what we were talking about, you were saying, you know, you're saying things sometimes on things that are personal, and you don't generally do that. It's so hard, and sometimes I wake up in a panic. Like my last episode was on atheism, and I'm a Christian, and I have a lot of uber conservative Christian friends and family, and I was like, oh, I'm scared. And I mean, it was just great conversation. I had so much fun. I love talking about these deeper issues. I do think it's fantastic. But I was also like, oh, did I say this? Uh-oh. You know, and I woke up panicking, and I messaged our mutual friend, JR, and I was like, dude, do you ever just panic about things you've said? And he goes, yeah, but then I realized this is me, and I'm just trying to be authentic. I was like, oh, okay, thank you so much. Like, he's like my reassured go-to guy.
Right.
He's
yeah.
right. I mean, this is me, and I'm not going to apologize for it. If people don't like what I say, I mean, I was the shy kid that was basically, like, my family. I kind of grew up in not a bullyish environment, but a little bit, where you're basically told what to do, and you can't really discuss. You're just shut down. So now that I've started talking about more things and having a more open mind, it's freeing. And so for me, hell yeah, I'm going to be talking about women's rights. I'm sorry, as somebody who thought women are second-class citizens, that's literally what I thought. I thought that about myself.
Right.
That kind of thinking, I'm angry about that now, and I'm going to say, wait, women are not second-class citizens. So I'm fighting for that. Like, I want to be pro-women where I never was before.
Right.
And so if people don't like that because of the religious aspect that they think is associated with it, which is not necessarily true, because I'm still a Christian, I don't care. Like, that's your problem, right? But I get panicky thinking, oh, this person's going to think I'm this and this and this. But then, sorry, I just ranted. But
no, you didn't.
I get really upset about things sometimes. I'm like, oh, that on my own podcast, I kind of delete some of the things I said because I'm like, ooh, that was too much.
Oh no, you leave it all. But what you're saying is true, and that's the thing. And one of the things that I've always tried to do, and when I don't feel like myself, is just to speak my mind and say how I feel, and just let it be what it is, and that's why, like, a lot of times, even when it comes to like conversations with people or whatever, like I can only be me, and I may not learn or know everything, but I'll learn. I can grow. I may not agree with myself in 10 years, but I'm going to be true to where I'm at right now in that point in time. And so many people are afraid to do that. They're afraid to say, this is how I feel. I mean, especially with this, the quote unquote cancel culture or whatever else that's going around right now. Like, people don't say how they feel. And that doesn't do anything but create either resentment or frustration or whatever, because you can't express yourself and have a realistic, real conversation with people about it. Like I always tell people when I say in my podcast, like, I would love to sit next to and have a conversation with someone that just hates black people. And it sounds funny, right? But there's reasonings behind it, right? There's reasons why they feel how they feel. And you know what? Some of the reasons maybe I don't like those either. I don't agree with that either, and being able to really find that common ground. But when we stifle people, or people are afraid to not say what's on their mind, it restricts growth. I mean, the communication is key. They talk about being, you have to have communication in anything, in any type of relationship. And if you can't fully say, this is how I feel, and not be judged by it and be able to have a conversation, that's a problem.
And that's the one thing. So I'm single, but in the Christian world, I mean, people get married when they're 20, and it's kind of obnoxious. But when I was 20, if I had married somebody, I would have picked somebody that oh, well, he has this theology and that theology and blah, 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 blah. And I dated somebody who was a real asshole, and he treated me like shit. And but he was this theological,
right,
checked all the boxes. And so, but now, when you have a list, what you're looking for in somebody.
Yeah.
Now, my main thing would be somebody I can have an actual conversation with, where I don't feel shut down, because that was my whole childhood. You don't really get to have an opinion, or if you question, you just get talked at. It's okay. And then there's no boundaries. It's so challenging talking to some of my family. But I think what the main thing I'd be looking for in a partner would be somebody I can just feel comfortable talking about anything with, and we can have a dialogue, and it's okay if we disagree, but as long as we have that respect. And I find that with the podcast, I think maybe that's why I love it so much, because I get to experience this aspect that I never had, really.
Right.
And I was always the kid that agreed with everything, even with my friends, we'll just do what they want to do, because I didn't have a voice. I was just okay, whatever you want. I was that kid, so
right.
Now I get to speak my own.
Now you have the power, right? You're the person behind the mic, and you can make that. And that's a beautiful thing in itself, and that's what I encourage a lot of people to try to really do, because you don't really know who you are until you really start speaking your mind, because you can be influenced by so many other things outside people, whether it's family events, whatever. And until you have your voice and that this is excuse me, this is who I am, it really changes your world. It opens up a whole nother avenue for you. And that's awesome, the fact that you can see that, and you can see that growth in yourself, and that you can get to that point where you're hey, this is me now, and this is great. I mean, that makes a world of difference in you, but also it makes you a positive role model to other people that see what you're doing, and you being you and authentically you is inspiring some other, little girl right now. There's a little Steph out there that doesn't have a voice, right? And she's wow, look at this person, look what they're doing. That can be me. And that's a beautiful thing right there. It really is.
Thank you. Well, you look back at your my last life coach, we were talking about some of the issues, when you look back at who you were as a kid. And he said, talk to yourself, like your inner child. And what would you say to her when you're doing this? Like, I have a tendency to binge eat because I stress eat. And that was always since I was a kid. Because that was the only thing I could control. And so he's like, but talk to Stephanie from that age. Would you force feed her this food? And I was like, no. And he goes, talk to her, like in those moments where you look back and you had these horrible memories of people being really mean to you. I was bullied in school for that and stuff. So talk to her like you're her mother now, and be good to her. And you know what? It sounds kind of weird sometimes, right? Like, talk to little Stephanie. But it's true, because I was still little Stephanie inside.
Right.
And she's hurting. And she would come home crying every day from school. Like, I hated grade school. And there's so much of that comes into our childhood. But then when you're good to your younger self, and you're like, I'm going to be good to you and help you along, then you heal as you go.
Right.
And I thought that was the most wonderful. When he was telling me that, I was like, oh my word, you're right.
You're right. And
right?
And that's a good point. And I think a lot of times, a lot of these things, why people don't go get help, or why people don't believe or don't fully commit to trying to make things better, is that they think it's weird, or because it sounds weird, or whatever, but I mean, that's the honest to God truth, right? Like, a lot of the times when we get to this point where you're an adult and you're mentally fucked up, or you don't feel good, or you don't feel right, or you have all these problems, whatever the situation is, those things weren't caused because of, something that happened last week or last month. Like, they're deep rooted through your early development as a baby, as a child, as a kid, right? Like, so it really is little you that's hurt, and that's, offended, or that's upset, or that has those problems, and that's who you have to really kind of speak to and address. And it's as funny as it may sound, whatever, it's the truth. And if we all just talk to the little person inside of us, we could get to a lot better place, So that hits the nail on the head for me.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know about you, but I think podcasting and talking these things through is very healing. I mean, I've had so much fun talking to people about anxiety, depression, food, all these different things. And every time I just come away like, oh, that was so great. And I can share my experience. And it's a healing process. It
is. And the fact that, but it takes brave people, or people to actually initiate those conversations for it to be a thing, right? And that's why, like, I wanted to start my podcast, because there are stories out there that I can share that were very difficult, and hopefully that, people see it and they can relate to it, or they're going through that same thing and they can relate to it, and see that it's okay. Like, here's someone that's gone through it, and maybe I'm still suffering with some of those issues, maybe I've completely worked past them, but they can see that it's doable, and they can exist with that. They're not alone in that. And podcasting does provide us a platform to where we can share those experiences, right? Because at the end of the day, your friend circle, or your real friend circle, is only so big, but podcasting, like, adds so much more to your repertoire, to your bank, to your whatever, where you can really reach out, right? I mean, at the end of the day, had I not started a podcast, had you not started a podcast, we wouldn't even know each other existed.
I know, right? And I've learned so much from you about Florida.
Yeah, Florida. Trash can of the U.S.
You mentioned them in your last podcast.
You can't stay away.
But I actually find it fascinating. Well, talking about things that we're scared to ask.
Right.
I appreciate how you and Aaron talk about your experiences as Black men, because from the stuff that we hear in the media, and you got some people saying racism doesn't exist, and some people saying like it's always like there's so much of it. And then you guys have this great perspective where you're talking through all these things that some of us are maybe afraid to ask. And I think that's really brave and amazing. And I really appreciate listening to you guys talk about your experiences.
Thank you. I mean, it's sometimes it's a hard conversation. Sometimes, it's a little easier than others. But it's also something that, for you to say that means a lot, right? Because sometimes it just seems like when we're making it, we're putting this stuff out there and we're saying these things and it kind of falls on deaf ears, but to hear that someone hears it and is receiving it, I mean, that's huge, and I don't know, it's a topic that is difficult, especially in this day and age. And it's funny because I actually, that you said that, I was supposed to go on the Mind Buzz with Gil, and it didn't work out, but we were going to do something for July 4th, right? And he wanted to do a July 4th episode and do like a freedom episode. And honestly, I don't know how that would have went. I think it would have been fun, but I don't know how that would have went, because when you talk about things, something like his race, like most people think of July 4th, now it's like a party holiday where we're going to barbecue, we're going to have fun, we're going to go to the beach. But when we're supposed to be celebrating, our independence in the U.S., that's great and all, but as Black people, we weren't free until like 100 years after that, so we're supposed to be celebrating this holiday that we were still enslaved as a people at that time, right? So I don't know, like I think there's a lot there and there's a lot to unpack. But if you ever have any questions around race, or you ever want to do an episode of that, I would happily jump on and share some stories with you of encounters that I've had, right? But I think that's good.
That would be amazing.
People need to ask those questions, right? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't mind sharing, just like there's things I know you don't mind sharing as well. And that's what grows people, and that's what grows community, and that's what tries to heal some of these scars that have been around for so long, is being able to kind of put them out there and see, not just where others can improve, but where we ourselves can improve, and be a better people, and is everybody going to agree? No, but I think we have an opportunity to change, and an opportunity to change a lot of people in the direction and the course of where we're going. So, I don't know.
I just have to say, it makes me laugh. So that was another thing with Canada and the U.S. because our Canada Day is July 1st.
Okay.
It's when Canada became a country.
Right.
And I've had Americans, I'm like, oh yeah, it's Canada Day. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, it's what it says. I mean, how do you not understand what this is? And I have to explain it. It's like your Independence Day, but for Canada.
Right.
And so it just makes me laugh. And then on and then those people will be, well, ours is, and I'm like, I know what yours is. Everybody knows what yours is. Like, right? You don't have to explain what July 4th is. And then I had people, I would say, oh, happy July 4th to you.
Right.
And I know you return it, back and, oh, happy July 4th. But it's like, I'm in Canada, I'm not celebrating. You don't need to tell me back.
Happy July 4th.
I really don't care. I'm sorry. I'm just saying it to you because I know it's your country. Oh, I hope that didn't sound like really bitchy.
No,
but,
it sounded fine to me.
It's funny. It is funny. But one thing actually about July 1st, and I don't know if you heard about this, but we had, there was a lot of Indigenous children's graves found all across Canada.
Oh, no.
Just before, I think it was in June, they found 215 graves in, I want to say BC. And then because we had these residential schools that started, I think, in the 1800s, and they closed in like 1997 or something. And they would take Indigenous children from their families and put them in these like Catholic Anglican schools and Christianize them or make them like, you have to learn our ways, right?
Right.
And there was a lot of abuse that went on, a lot of, they did terrible, terrible things. And, it's heartbreaking. And I have to acknowledge, I I mean, we weren't taught about this in school. I didn't find out about it till my friend had grandparents who were part of that. And I was like, what's a residential school? Like, we didn't know about this stuff. But anyway, so in Canada, a lot of us did not celebrate Canada Day this year. My mom and I went to this walk, and it was a Turtle Day walk, or a Turtle Island walk, they called it. And it was like a healing walk for the Indigenous people to explain a lot of their culture, a lot of what they went through. And we went on this walk to remember those children. And there were comments from people on Canada Day like, well, I'm going to celebrate Canada no matter what. And you can celebrate, that's fine. But I think you can celebrate or not celebrate, but at least acknowledge that we have problems. Canada's not like this wonderful nation that everything's so happy and we didn't hurt anybody. We hurt a lot of people in becoming a nation. And so I think it's important for us to hear these stories and to acknowledge them. And sorry, I just went on a rant there, but
no,
But
you
ours
didn't.
was very quiet this year all across Canada because a lot of us were just like, I can't celebrate this country right now because of what just happened.
That is, wow. Like, I mean, first and foremost, no, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, that's crazy to even hear. And I mean, probably why we didn't know is because people in the States we start celebrating July 4th, on June 30th. So, especially if it's a weekend, so they're already, wasted and everything else. But I mean, that's crazy. But the fact that like a lot of you guys would even take the time away to even honor those people and honor those lives that were there is huge. Like, and I hate to say it, like I don't think that's something that someone here in the States would do. Maybe that's why they say Canadians are so nice, right? You guys care about everybody. Like here, we'd be like, yeah, who cares what happened on July 4th? This is beer and barbecue, and we're going to the lake, But that's awesome.
I think there's a lot of Americans who would do that. There's a lot of Canadians who wouldn't. So we're not that nice.
We're not. I mean, okay. I will say for my, I have very limited Canadian interaction. Maybe 2 people, and you guys have both been amazing. So right now, you guys are batting 100% in Canada.
Well, okay, we are nice. We apologize way too often. That is true. Like if somebody bumps into me, I apologize. But there's also a lot of not nice Canadians, and so my friend, I was telling her about one time about how I was bullied as a kid. She goes, "I thought Canadians were nice." I'm like, "What? We're not. We're still human. Like there's."
Not nice to others, maybe not nice to fellow Canadians. I don't know. You guys just have a reputation of being just accepted, okay? Just say you're a nice person. That's okay.
Okay. Well, we are nice, but yeah.
No.
It's a funny thing. But you know what? We're really proud of that. We're really proud of our actors. Like anytime you mention Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams, Justin Bieber, whoever, right? Whomever, we're like, oh, they're Canadian. Very exciting for us.
You guys produce great people. So that's a win in itself. Well, we've actually done over an hour here.
I know.
That's crazy. I don't want to hold you up too much. I know we got the weekend ahead of us, but I want to say thank you again and say I appreciate you for making the time to even come out. And like this was so much fun, and we definitely have to do this again. We need to do a U.S. versus Canada episode, and yeah, we have a lot that we need to do. I have a lot of ideas, and I hope that we can collaborate in the future again. But yeah, before we get out of here, I want you to tell everybody again where they can find you.
You can find me at StuffUp_podcast on Instagram. StuffUpPodcast.com is my website. And I got off Facebook. I deactivated Facebook for a few days, and then it got rid of my whole page, but oh well, that's fine. And then you can find my podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, basically. The Step Up Podcast.
Step Up Podcast. We love it. Thank you for being here. And let's close this out.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm ready to play now. Put me in the game now. I came here to prove it. I'm ready to do it. I can't be afraid now.